Well, hello. Thanks for joining me. We just started this new conversations ministry and launched our first episode last week, which sounds very official. But it's just a way to try to connect with our members during this strange time of separation. So I am glad to be joined today by the members of our faith formation team and Tara Bradbury. So we're going to go around and just, if you can briefly say who you are and what you do, then we'll go ahead and get started with our conversation. You want to start, Mike?
Sure. I'm Mike Tilden. I'm the Director of Youth Ministries at First Congo, and I coordinate the high school and middle school youth groups, as well as the 8th grade confirmation program.
My name is Sabbagha. I'm the Director of Children's Ministries at First Congo, and I oversee the nursery care and then Sunday school classes from preschool to 7th grade. I also help with the confirmation class.
And I'm Tara Bradbury. I am a member of First Congregational Church, and I also happen to be a licensed clinical social worker, and I work in private practice in downtown LaGrange.
And I'm Katherine Willis Pershey, and I'm one of the associate ministers at First Congregational Church, and I get to work with the faith formation team with Mike and Hope pretty closely, and we've really loved getting to be a team together. And this is Betsy. I am trying to keep her happy so she doesn't bark at the dogs walking by, so my apologies in advance if she does. She has to spend some time crated during when I teach yoga from my living room, so I figure she can be here for this.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the reasons, well, let's back up. I'll back up. I have just a way of beginning these conversations by starting with where have you seen God lately? Where have you experienced God's love, or however you want to phrase that question? Where have you witnessed the movement of the Spirit?
I'll go first. I have seen him in so many places, but I feel like I see him where I need to see him most. And this time working from home has been a bit challenging for me. I am a planner and I like to be organized and have everything set. And that's kind of been turned upside down. And I have seen God help me through this pretty much on a daily basis. I have learned to be patient. I have learned to be more flexible with my days and try some new things. And even though it's been challenging, at the end of the day, I have to say I'm proud of myself. And I honestly have not done it by myself. I wake up and I think, how am I going to do this today? And I do. And I truly believe that it's because God is walking next to me. There have been some challenging times. So thanks for asking that, Katherine.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I'll go. I guess I have two answers, if that's okay. One is one that is so definitive to me, and that is my mother happens to be in memory care. She has dementia, so we haven't been able to see her for 2 months like a lot of families. And she has a nurse, Jacqueline, who has is the epitome of God's love to me. In this big facility, she's the person I could reach out to. Yesterday I said my mom's feet hurt, and today she sent me a text and, told me how she checked every one of her toes. And if that's if that's not love, I'm not sure what is. Mm-hmm. And the other is maybe what I'm wishing that I'm hoping, or I'm trying to remind myself to see God's love. I think like a lot of people, I have adult children living with me again. 2 college kids along with my high schooler. And the 5 of us have not lived together in 4 years. So it's been fun. And I'm, in all seriousness, is really challenging at times. But I try in those moments where we're having a family dinner and playing a game and everyone's getting along. I try to remember wow, this is totally a blessing. This would never happen except for this reason. So I'm sharing that with a caveat that I'm really trying to remind myself that that's God's blessing.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Mike?
Well, mine is fairly similar to Tara's, except my kids are just at a very different age. But it's, I think about how much time I would have been spending with my 3-year-old and as of today, 11-month-old. If this weren't happening, and it would just be such a significantly different amount of time. And so to be able to have the chance to spend so much continuous time, especially with the youngster who's, everything is changing every day. And the older one is 3 and is every bit of a 3-year-old, and it brings all the challenges of a 3-year-old, but is also very sweet and loves his baby brother. And so it's fun to see that the two of them have so much time together, even though sometimes they're not nice to each other, or at least Jimmy is not nice to Theo. Theo, of course, is always nice. So it's been a joy to be able to have all that time together as a family when we, otherwise would not be together as much. So.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's interesting. I mean, there's so many ways that people have reached out to one another and, tried to express care and gratitude. And I definitely, just got a thank you note today from a church member saying, how meaningful it has been to, receive the worship services at home. And just all of the ways people are trying to stay connected and reach out and check in with one another. So there's that in a sort of a global sense and specific sense of that, thank you I received today. I also have to say, and I kind of paused because I thought, am I really going to say this? But I am totally witnessing God's love through the John Krasinski Some Good News show. Have any of you watched it?
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
It's like literally every episode I cry through most of it, and the girls kind of look at me like, when will it start? It's just so moving, and I do think that there's something to be said for reading the news and knowing what's going on, and not always having to jump to positivity when we are actually in a time of lamentation. But I also love the way that he's lifting up the good news, and it's been a really beautiful thing. So a YouTube show is how I'm witnessing God's love as well. So, well, one of my reasons for wanting us to have this conversation already came up even in our initial reflections, and that's that we are all professionals and also parents, and we have a wide variety range of ages of our kids, and recognizing there are different challenges with preschoolers and babies. And I have one elementary school, one junior high. I always forget 6th grade is junior high. And Hope's has a senior, which we know has a very specific set of challenges and griefs this year. And then, the high school and adult, we have the whole range, and recognizing that there are those challenges. So our conversation today is really like, we're not going to fix anything, solve anything, cover everything, or even really more than scratch the surface, but to just start that conversation about how can we be supporting families? What is our what should be our guidepost along the way? And so we're bringing Tara into the conversation in part because we do really have a deep amount of respect for the perspective that she brings as a mental health professional. So Tara, do you want to speak first to this big picture question?
Sure. I think, one thing that I have shared with a lot of parents that I work with is, I I have a huge concern about kind of the mental health component of what's happening in the world. And I don't think we're even going to see it until the magnitude of it, until we're kind of over the crisis. But, you know, I don't think we can downplay the trauma that our kids have been through. You know, like in a 24-hour period, most of them, you know, lost their school, their friends, their activities. I mean, it was like everything was ripped. Every security kind of blanket, with the exception of their family, hopefully, has been ripped from them. And so I hear a lot of parents, you know, and a lot of people trying to comfort kids, saying things like, well, you know, like if you're a sophomore, I have a sophomore in high school, and if people say like, well, at least you're not a senior, you know, or if you're a senior, well, at least you get to do this, you know, instead of just like, let's just like live in the grief for a while and be okay with it, no matter where you are. And one of the things that I kind of say is like, we just can't quantify someone's grief, you know, like my son is a huge water polo player, so he lost his season. You know, that doesn't mean a lot, except if you're a water polo player. Would you understand how important and how grief-filled that is for him? And so I think we just have to acknowledge that for our kids and allow them to be okay with it, instead of like giving them the message that other people have it worse. I think the biggest gift we can give them is to be like, it sucks. I'm sorry. That really must be terrible. Like, tell me how you feel about it. To me, that's like the biggest message, I think, is just to be okay. And we do it as parents ourselves. I mean, like, I hear parents say, well, at least I don't have a senior, or at least, you know, this isn't happening. There's always going to be somebody who has it worse. And then there's parts of that for gratitude, right, that we should accept. But really, I think just letting people be okay with being sad is important.
Yeah, seems like you're able to get to a place of genuine gratitude if you journey through like the real grief, rather than like kind of go to this place of prescriptive gratitude where I'm supposed to feel this way, I should feel this way, I shouldn't feel bad because other people have it worse, all that.
Yeah. And it's sad. I mean, there's just nothing, it's just sad. It really is.
Mike and Hope, did you want to add anything to?
I would love to jump in. So I have a son, he'll be 25 in a few months, and my daughter will be 22 next week, graduating from college, technically on Sunday. And, you know, I think our whole family has had mental health issues come up at different times of our life. And my daughter has taught me a lot through her struggles, and she often gives me permission to share that. But one thing that Tara said, and I think it is so important, and I, you know, when you say, would you ever go back and change something? And I think I would go back as a parent and change some things, and to acknowledge what they're feeling and to make it okay. And Tara, you said, you know, it's okay to be sad. We are sad, and not to compare it to other people in your house, other friends, you yourself. You know, maybe you don't understand it. That's okay. They feel sad. And I think that's just really important. And you cannot do that enough. The other thing that I've always had a hard time with, I want to fix things. I want to make it better. I don't want my kids to have to suffer through this. And Katherine, I know you and Mike and I have talked about this, how important it is to be resilient. And this is a time where I think it's really important to show children, your family is here, we're with you together. I don't know what we're going to do, but what are some ideas you have, or what are some things that are worrying you, rather than to jump in there and say, oh, you're bored, well, let's do this. Well, you know, sometimes I'm bored too. Well, what could we do? You know, it's okay to have that time and that space where you don't really know what to do. And I think when you acknowledge that and you're honest with your kids, that provides them with an experience where in the future when this happens, they can refer to that again and say, gosh, you know, my mom didn't know what to do either. And we figured it out, she figured it out, and we did it together. And I think that's important to show your vulnerability and to have them develop some resilience and some tools as well, because, you know, we're kind of all figuring this out together.
And I think to jump on that, Hope, I think another great question to ask your kids, because I'm that fixer too, and I want to, like, you know, like, what if we do this, you know, is like pausing and saying, like, what will make it better for you? You know, like, I've asked my 16-year-old that a lot of times, like, what would make this better for you? The other day he came in and said, a rebounder, like a ball rebounder would make this better for me. And I was like, okay, done. I can do that. Totally do that, you know?
It does seem like it's a kind of a finding a balance of fixing what we can, and like some part of what I'm trying to get at is like the balance of, we can't always fix the boredom. I mean, the boredom is incredible. I mean, they have how many hours of school, and then like all this time without their friends. I mean, how much do you try to just distract? I mean, how much TV should we be letting them watch? I think, you know, but it does, you know, we have, this is a generation that has all these feelings about screen time and all that, you know, how much are we, should we be distracting, and how much, and sort of getting that little break from thinking about it, and how much do we just recognize it can't, there actually no amount of Netflix is going to make this, you know.
You know, I have one of the answers I've given to that, because I can't tell you how many parents have asked me the screen time question. And I've given that up to my 16-year-old. I will say that I don't monitor it at all during the pandemic. I have said that I have gone into this quarantine, like, I don't know if anyone's ever taken a road trip with their kids. Like, we've driven, I remember the first time my husband and I drove our 3 kids to Florida, and our rule to each other at the time was, if we can say yes, let's say yes, because like, we have to get through this. We know it's not going to be pleasant. So if we can say yes, then like, let's say yes, you know, like, now obviously, you know, that is you know, we have to qualify that with, like, if your kid's in their room 24 hours with the light off, you know, you can't say yes to that. But like the things that we kind of always, maybe in normal times, we'd worry about, like, if we could just not worry about that, you know, like, do we really care if the 17-year-old sleeps till 1 PM? Not really. I'm not going to worry about that one, you know, and I'm not going to worry about how much screen time currently. I mean, again, I think you have to know your kid, but and truthfully, for teenage boys, that's the only connection they have to their friends right now, is being able to play Xbox maybe with them. So,
I mean,
yeah,
same.
I'm taking it like a long trip.
Yeah.
Like, you got to say yes if you can. You know?
Yeah, it's, I mean, same there. Like, there's no other means of playing except, you know, they'll do like Minecraft or Roblox or, I mean, the House Party app, which in pre-pandemic world would have been like, oh no, even the name, like an app called House Party, I'm going to let my 8-year-old get, but I mean, it's like a lifesaver because it gives her a chance to see her friends. That being said, I have also noticed that the second you know, disconnect, there's a real low, because it's not satisfying.
Yeah, that's true. And I think sometimes it's allowing yourself to enter their world too. Like, I mean, I've played the Xbox. I mean, it's a joke. I can't do anything, but you know, or my kids have introduced us to this like online game called Psych, which is like a family game, which we all have like downloaded now and play. And it's a game that you all play together, you know? So yeah, I mean, I think it's, if you can enter into their world a little bit, I mean, that's a way for you to connect to.
Now, Mike, you and I are sharing the experience of having, I mean, your kids are significantly younger than mine, but getting to be a full-time working parent who also has children at home all the time. How has that been working out for you and Laura?
It's definitely a challenge. And I mean, I'm grateful to have the kind of flexibility that my job offers. Because Laura doesn't have, Laura has specific meetings and office hours that she has to maintain as a school social worker, and she has IEP meetings and all those things that she has to be maintaining that are, that have a time. And I have just a few of those during the week. So, like I said, I'm spending a lot of time with my kids, which is wonderful and not, depending on the day and the mood of the crowd. But it's really, I don't know. I feel like it was actually, I was reading something that Glennon Doyle posted, and it was about the screen time, and someone was complaining to her about not being able to get anything done because they feel like they can only get something done when, during the screen time that they give their kids. And her response was, what time is screen time during a pandemic? All the times, all the time. And I think that was a struggle at the beginning, was sort of just, as a parent, letting go of what we normally try to do with screen time and just be like, this is an unusual time that calls for unusual reactions. And if Jimmy watches 4 Paw Patrols instead of 2, everything's going to be okay. And Laura and I can get a little bit more work done, or some work done. But it's also been an issue of, working from 9 to 9:12 and 10:15 to 10:27 and 11:30 to 12:30 and then 2 to 2:05. And,
Did you see the Dolly Parton meme about that?
Yeah.
Working 9 to 9:12.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not 9 to 5.
Right. Just being okay with being disrupted, and the fact that we're living in a disrupted time, and getting things done when you can. And it's hard, and it takes a lot of sort of self-control to not feel like you're not accomplishing what you need to be accomplishing because you're not doing it in your usual setting or time frame. So that's been hard. But I also, I've had lots of conversations with high school and middle school kids, and I think about, them dealing, because they're dealing with grief, but I feel like, they're one of the main ways that I view high schoolers dealing with grief in a normal setting is trying to make sure that their lives are as normal as possible. And the biggest piece of that for high schoolers, I think, is their friends. And so when you take away their ability to engage with their most important safety net in a crisis or during grief, it's mind-blowing to them. And you're right, gaming with them or FaceTiming or Zoom chatting, it's great. They enjoy seeing each other, but it's not the same. It doesn't have like Katherine, you said, it's the very quick fall off at the end. It does not have long lasting positive effects. It's a quick high and a fast drop. And so it's really hard. I think it's got to be hard obviously Jimmy and Theo that doesn't matter to them. But like having, grade school, high school, college age kids who can't lean on their friends, literally, physically lean on them the way that they are used to doing in times of grief, where do they go with that? And, it's really, really hard to watch them do that. And there's nothing you can say other than, yeah, that sucks.
I felt like I was doing, like I did a really cruel thing by still asking Sal and I'm trying to say Aaron. I was trying to say Emily. As like a sister, I know what it's like to be called your sister's name. Anyway, Sal and Aaron, I still ask them to do their president's report, which they do after every work tour. Only this time I asked them to reflect on, the disappointment of not going on a work tour. And that just felt like such a horrible thing. And yet their reflections were some of the most poignant and personally helpful. I mean, everybody has a grief in this. Everybody had something they were supposed to have done, probably more than one thing they were supposed to have done. Sorry, my dog. And I wept through those reflections more than once during the editing, and then when I actually was worshiping on the couch. They were very meaningful. So I just want to lift that up as again, sometimes obviously it's the harder thing not to just repress or ignore, to create space for that. But I hope it was as helpful to them as it was to me personally to hear them reflect on that.
And if I could add something too, one of my favorite authors was Kelly Corrigan, who has written these awesome memoirs. And I was listening to, she's doing this BYOB thing online. And she was talking about that. I think it's equally important to acknowledge the grief that parents are going through. Because as much as kids are missing things, as parents, we're missing, hope. I'm sure there's grief in missing your daughter walk across the stage. There's grief, and as silly as it might seem, in me not being able to watch Jack play water polo this spring. And I think the pressure, the thing, to me, the ugliest part of the pandemic has been, not the ugliest, but a ugly part is the new, pressure on Facebook and all social media to make quarantine look awesome, to be here's the theme dinner we did today, or our family, here's the perfect schedule for the elementary school kids, that a parent has posted, I love when people, another great author, Jen Hatmaker, had this hysterical post of her sitting in the bathtub, locked in her bathroom, I'm done. I can't do it anymore, So let's just give ourselves permission for this to be ugly, because there was going to be brief, really beautiful moments, but I'm going to say there's going to be equal amount of, if not more ugly, stuff too. So.
Yeah, the Moms in Faith groups, the Friday morning one and the evening group, there's been a steady stream of memes of various the most recent one, it's okay if you fall apart sometimes, tacos fall apart and we still love them. So I feel like that group has a really good handle on not feeling like the need to perform the perfect pandemic, but that's a group that has read a lot of Glennon Doyle and a lot of Jen Hatmaker. We actually just are discussing a podcast with Kate Bowler and Glennon Doyle today or tomorrow, and it's good stuff. And that's one of the things that's been interesting, is what holds up during a pandemic and what doesn't. And just from a theological standpoint, there are certain, if your theology is really thin, it's not gonna hold up when there's actual real human suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So one more question, just as we as the faith formation team of this church are trying to support families, what should we be focusing on? Is it about program? I mean, is it a program? How do we do this, Tara, please?
I think it's about connection, and it's about connecting with people any way that you can connect with them. If you cannot tell, I love water polo, and the best thing I think that's happened is my son's water polo coach has kept practice, and he has practice every day from 3 to 4 o'clock. I mean, which is so funny because it's water polo, right? But it's true connection with his team, and it's true connection with his coach. So to me, it's not about programming, and it's about making the phone call or, the Zoom or whatever you want, and just trying to make connection with people, and saying like, and I guess too, modeling that it's okay to not be okay. Like I had an awful day today. Like, how about you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like we're doing the best we can on this. I mean, the pivot that we made to being able to do, Sunday school over Zoom and to be, Mike's been meeting with Journeys and PF and, I feel like that has been our focus. It just,
For sure. Yeah.
I think we're kind of the people who always want to be, doing more and yet we're dealing with our own limitations too. So,
yeah, right.
yeah.
But that's a blessing, don't you think, when you can share that with somebody? Like, I've had numerous conversations with Meredith at times where she's like, oh my God, this is like going on, and like, to me, not being raised in that kind of faith formation where it's, like I was raised Catholic, so the priest was like so high and whatever. But for me as a parishioner to hear my pastor say like, I am struggling with this is like a huge blessing, I think.
Let me bless you a little more. I am struggling with this. Do you feel blessed?
I do. I do. Yeah. Yeah.
If I may add, Tara and Katherine, you both mentioned something, the connections and the relationships. And Katherine, when you said,
we have like a Hogwarts moment going on right now, though. All of a sudden, this cat just popped up.
It never fails. He loves me being home. I'll tell you that much. But anyway, I think the relationships is what's so important. And I can remember when my daughter was in second grade and we took a long trip to Mexico for like, I don't know, it was like 10 days. And her teacher gave me a packet of worksheets to do. And I thought, really? I don't know. I have a teaching degree. I'm a parent. And I say at the end of the day, when the pandemic is over, you're a family and you're a parent. Now, like I said, I'm a teacher and I know that stuff is important. But at the end of the day, are we going to, nitpick about how much screen time they've had or chatting with their friends on Zoom? I think it's the relationships at the end of the day. The families are important. The friends are important. And, maybe it's not the best time to teach multiplication. If your child is struggling and they just don't want to write that paper, then, you give them a hug and you say, I get it. Let's just put that away. I think that's what's important, is that we just embrace each other for where they are, and expectations are going to have to change, and that's okay. I think it's really important, and especially with kids nowadays with all the anxiety, is to let them acknowledge it and to be in the moment, just to be in the moment. Don't worry about yesterday or tomorrow. Let's just deal with today.
Yeah, I think about, and this is in part coming from a Glennon Doyle talking on this podcast I just listened to, saying that my generation, Mike's generation, has been told that the thing that you're supposed to do as a parent is protect them from everything, and also give them every opportunity so that they can achieve, and be anything they want to be. And we can't shelter them from this. We are sheltering at home with them in the midst of this. And but recognizing that it is, it's not like we celebrate that this is a struggle, but recognize that this is building character and potentially, forming us in ways that aren't all going to be bad. Maybe it was time to break up with the achievement addiction.
Well, I think that there are, a positive that could, possibly come out of this is I think about, the age at which children realize that their parents are vulnerable and have their own issues. And I feel like it's usually probably in your 20s when you start to maybe become friends with your parents, when you're also an adult and you've been through enough life experiences. And so I feel like this might be giving younger kids an opportunity to witness, the vulnerability of their parents, and that that's okay, and that their parents are still going to be taking care of them and walking with them. And, that could be a beautiful thing that comes out of this, is a little bit, earlier understanding of who your parents are as a kid. And also for parents, having kids who have a more well-rounded understanding of who you are as a parent, and knowing that, there's always going to be an opportunity for them to come to you as a parent, no matter what the situation, no matter if you're sheltered at home or away at college or overseas or struggling with whatever. Your parents are always going to be available to you, and not perfect, but always willing to walk next to you. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much to each of you for taking the time to have this conversation. I am incredibly grateful for each of you and for what you're doing in our church community and the community at large to support families. We will get through this. It's not going to be easy, but we are going to get through this. So, Mike, would you be willing to offer a prayer to close our time together?
Sure. Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, we are grateful for this time together to share ideas and support our families. We ask that you guide us through these difficult days, Lord. We ask that you take special care of our families and young people as they navigate these unprecedented and worrisome waters. We ask that you be the calm in their lives that they need. We ask all this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
I want to add one more plug. When we're all home, that and one of the biggest things we can do to help right now, we all know, is to stay home. But we do have an opportunity. We're inviting families kids to become pen pals with some of our older members who are particularly those who are sheltering alone and are dealing with a completely different set of challenges during this time. So if anybody is interested in being paired with a church member, I think that'll be a great way to brighten someone's day. And we all know, we're called to love God and neighbor. Sometimes we need to get out of our own heads and reach out to others, helping them and helping ourselves as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
You. Great to see you. Thanks, Tara. Good to see you, Mike.
Yeah.
Yep.